Howdy there. We're going to go through my top 10 spaghetti westerns with 5 honorable mentions. Now, be on the lookout for an update as I watch more spaghetti westerns because I know I haven't seen all of the greats, but I do feel fairly confident in a lot of my top 10, especially the top 5. And I think they're considered the best spaghetti westerns of all time for very good reason, and we're going to dip into those reasons, and we're going to start from the top as opposed to from the bottom and work our way down, because I do feel like the first few at least are pretty much cemented in the minds of those who love this genre as the very best. And my very best is none other than The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You have a brilliant director of Sergio Leone, and I want to implore you, check out my Sergio Leone movies ranked. Obviously, you're going to get a pretty decent idea, at least for 4 of his films, where I have them based upon this video, but I just go into deeper detail there, so you will probably very much appreciate that video. But this has an insanely talented cast. You got Eastwood, Wallach, Van Cleef. All of them are at the top of their games, and to be able to have 3 leads that you can just kind of juggle, have their charisma on display at different times and bounce off one another, it's like a big 3 in basketball. If one is hot, you got that going for you, but when all 3 are hot and rolling on all cylinders, that is when magic truly happens. And I do believe The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a movie that kind of transcends spaghetti western as a whole. It makes the genre transcend. Now, it's a very early entry, but the reason I say this is because I do think that as a subgenre, spaghetti westerns get a bad rap. Some people just kind of, they tie it in with lower budget, lower effort. But when you look at The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, it is nearly impossible to say that, because this is a brilliant film, a masterpiece. And quite frankly, I find this to be the pinnacle of spaghetti westerns when it comes to violence, music, and cinematography, which are 3 hallmarks of all the spaghetti westerns that are great or better. And I think it sets the bar for all other spaghetti westerns. While we're here, please subscribe to the channel. I just mentioned one of my videos, the Sergio Leone filmography ranked, that I think you'll appreciate. I also very recently came out with my favorite spaghetti western actors, and on top of that, I have a Jango and the Great Silence in-depth review with Matt, aka Warchamp, where we dive deep into those films and what we loved about them. You're not going to want to miss those, and you're not going to want to miss what's coming next for the channel. As I stated, update to this video sometime in the future once I get back to watching some spaghetti westerns. So subscribe to the channel. Next up, number 2 on the list is Sergio Leone again, Once Upon a Time in the West. This is Leone's closest entry to overtaking The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I think it's another tremendous cast with Henry Fonda. You got Bronson and Robards also on the cast, and a ton of people who have smaller roles but are just really, really talented. It hits the highs for violence, music, and cinematography that we see in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which isn't very much of a surprise considering it is another Leone project, and quite frankly, the ending is amazing. If you like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and you haven't seen Once Upon a Time in the West, I highly suggest it. This was actually the 3rd spaghetti western that I had ever seen. The first 2 are the ones that I watched and reviewed with Matt, Jango and the Great Silence, but after watching Once Upon a Time in the West, I was like, hot diggity dog, I gotta watch more spaghetti westerns, and I'm glad I did. Coming up next, we got Jango, the one that started it all. At least that is the slogan of the film. Franco Nero is dynamite in this role. I really enjoyed him. Iconic villains. I even like the costume design. The red hoods makes that good bad play very, very interesting. The badass minigun reveal. I mean, it's like Scarface before Scarface. You know, when he opens up that casket, reveals the minigun, it just felt like such a sick movie moment. And it's something that, you know, if you're a storyteller, if you're a director, if you're a writer, whatever, like, I feel like that's the kind of stuff that you aspire to do. Just have those moments that are very, on the face of it, simplistic, but just very weighty and impactful. Great violence, and this film has an edge to it, which is something that pretty much separates spaghetti westerns from normal westerns. And then, quite frankly, I think westerns kind of got inspired by that and said, well, it's going to be hard for us to compete with spaghetti westerns if we don't kind of start getting more edgy ourselves. So while there might be a lot of debate, people might look down on westerns and spaghetti westerns, and then maybe some like one, don't like the other. But, you know, for all the detractors of spaghetti westerns, you have to say it did inspire westerns as well. So keep that in mind. Next, the great silence. And this, as a character, Silence and how he is, I guess, who he is or what he is, I find to be such a tremendous mechanism to have that stoic lead. Him kind of having, first of all, that scar is like immediately noticeable once you see it, and makes sense for him to be silent. Great character, kind of little nugget for that character. Then you have an all-time great villain in Klaus Kinski. He's an actor I will not shut up about, and I don't think I ever will, quite frankly, but him as a villain in this film makes me wish that there was... I guess it inspires me to watch more of his films to see him in villainous roles because he freaking kills it. And a shocking ending. One of the most memorable endings of all the spaghetti westerns on this list, quite frankly. It's really, really damn good. Then we have For a Few Dollars More. This is another great cast that includes Eastwood, Van Cleef, and Volante. It's a Sergio Leone film, so you're going to have the great action, the great cinematography, and the great music. But I really, and why this is as high as it is on this list, is because of the reveal we find at the end between Van Cleef's character and Volante's character. That backstory really makes that ending super, super impactful. And Volante is just, that makes him a tremendous villain, that backstory. I really, really like it. And coming up next, it is the third of the trilogy on the list. Just because it's third doesn't mean it's not good, because this is a great retelling of Kurosawa's Yojimbo. So much so that Leone actually had to pay out Akira Kurosawa because the stories were so similar. In a funny note, I don't know if this is actually true or just said in jest, but Kurosawa said he made more money from A Fistful of Dollars than he did Yojimbo. Take that for what you will. I find that to be quite humorous. But we have a great performance by Clint Eastwood, and this film, like I said, keeps the standard of great action, cinematography, and music that the trilogy has kept so high. Coming up next, we got Kioma. And this is one of Franco Nero's best performances. because he's such a wild man, he's so kinetic, keeps everything moving. Also, he can be kind of stoic as well. But I love when characters have that ability to just kind of go full force. I really do enjoy that. And look, Kioma as a character definitely has that. Not only that, but the relationships established between the protagonists really makes you care for them. Kioma's father and Kioma's friend and Woody Strode, which make certain kind of big moments in this movie even more impactful. And the impact makes there be, I guess, a huge emotional weight when you get to the final showdown. Obviously not wanting to give anything away, but what happens to lead to an eventual showdown is quite tremendous. Very, very, like, it does pull on the emotional strings. It's like you like the characters so much that it makes you care about what comes to them and what comes after. So this film was really tremendous when it came to that. Next, Franco Nero stays in the mix with the mercenary, and the chemistry between Franco Nero and Mastante is tremendous in this. And Mastante I had actually only seen in a giallo film, and I believe it is I can't remember, but it was a good giallo film. And I see that he's in a spaghetti western, and I wanted to check it out. And man, his performance in this was tremendous. I think it's the bird with the crystal plumage. I think that's the name of it. I was at a blank, or I didn't want to butcher it, but I think that's it. And he was good in that film, but man, he was really good in The Mercenary because of the chemistry that he had with Nero. Then on top of that, you have a great villain in Jack Palance, and a very impactful and fitting ending for this film. Really, really enjoyed it. Definitely check it out. Next, we have A Bullet for the General. Interesting character development from Volante and Castell. I really like how Castell kind of joins the group, and then you quickly kind of start to see that he is pulling the strings where Volante once was and still thinks that he is. Then on top of that, just great performances by those two, and really, really impactful climax. And I don't know if it's a fitting ending, but a very interesting ending. I guess you could say fitting, but definitely interesting. Definitely check this one out if you haven't already. Then we have Death Rides a Horse. Van Cleef is tremendous in this film. It's really edgy from beginning to end, which plays into the motivation for Law, our other co-star. And really great villains because of the edginess that motivates Law, and how the villains are kind of structured and or introduced makes a really great kind of narrative pathway for Law and Van Cleef's revenge and their paths crossing. So that is the top 10, but I want to give you those 5 honorable mentions that you should check out as well. Starting with The Big Gun Down, you have a great performance from Van Cleef and Milian, and a really interesting story that kind of keeps you a little bit on your toes, I will say. Then you got Compañeros, tremendous chemistry between Nero and Milian, and again, Jack Palance plays a great villain. Then you got And God Said to Cain, a fitting performance, I will say, from Klaus Kinski, and a unique gothic and creepy feel. Then you got Duck You Sucker. You got the fingerprints of Sergio Leone all over this, which is pretty much always a good thing, and a great performance from James Coburn. And last but not least, Day of Anger. Lee Van Cleef is the man, and this has a very very good ending. Thank you all for joining me on this video. If you haven't already, please, I implore you, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you on the flippity floop. Bye, y'all.